Outkick 360 is back. Alongside Chad Withrow and Paula Kuharski, I'm Jonathan Hutton. Glad you're with us. Jacob Swanson, Lance Lee, David Reed is the chairman of the board, making the show happen for us. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate that. If you're not watching on YouTube, a reminder, the new YouTube channel is available. Just search out Outkick 360. And if you have an Amazon device, you can ask Alexa to search Outkick 360 on YouTube. The show will play automatically. If you're watching on Twitter, give us a retweet, a share on Facebook. Gentlemen, back for another week of the show on the Outkick Network. Ready to go. Hope you're doing well.
They let us back, which is a positive, and we are ready to rock and roll. Spring is in the air, and big spring sporting events in the air that we're going to be talking a lot about this week.
Well,
Paul, how was your weekend?
I had a good weekend. Some good baseball out in close to home, finally. I didn't have to commute 40 or 50 minutes to kids' baseball. Got a little sunburn, redneck Kuharski, as they call
Steve
me.
Spurrier would be proud, is what you're saying.
Pitching kid,
got a little burn.
And so it was fun. Got some things done around the house finally, and anxious to live vicariously through Hutton with this wedding talk that he's given us from his trip to
Another
Atlanta.
wedding, another weekend, another wedding for the Huttons.
It's like every weekend is a different version of a royal wedding for Hutton, with some of the festive wedding affairs that you've attended so far this summer.
These two
You had
this
another one this
summer
weekend.
top it. So this was more of a anniversary party than a wedding. So congratulations to Michael and Kelsey Wallace.
Congratulations.
Married over last summer, and then you better believe they still scheduled the party as soon as they could. So this was the greatest one-year anniversary party I've ever attended in my life. It was awesome down in Georgia at the Atlanta Athletic Club. My first time going. For those that are familiar with the show, Austin Price of VolQuest references the AAC quite a bit in his travels. It's worth the hype. Very, very cool. I had no idea it was actually 3 courses. I was just expecting one giant golf course. You pull up, you have the gated entry, you have the guard that's looking for the list. I mean, when you pull up, okay, this is going to be cool. And then you walk into this facility. It was built in like 2014, I think they were saying, something like that, or renovated to the max. We're going. We're going. I've already mentioned Outkick 360. A couple of the bartenders watched the show, which is cool.
Hello to those bartenders.
Shout out to the AAC.
Right.
Cheers.
That's right. Yes, and
I love a nice old fashioned. If you're listening,
What was the name of the drink that you were?
the transfusion.
The transfusion.
The transfusion. at the
Initially,
Atlanta-
Hutton thought they were actually asking about a transfusion.
So we walked it. We were doing photos with the family, and Danny comes up. Danny and Scott, the 2 members, come up. They're like, "Hey, let me go show you around." These guys, we're still waiting on a couple people during the photos. So we get lost and go take the tour. And as we're walking in, one of the guys inside was like, "Hey, Danny, would you like a transfusion?" And I thought, like, for whatever, I'd never heard of this.
You thought this was real, rich people stuff.
Yes.
We're gonna get a banana bag and an IV, and we're gonna be good to go for the night.
I thought it was a lot like the IV center where they show up and you get rid of your hangover.
There was one
Michael
across the street
Douglas
from
on
our
Wall
old,
Street was getting a transfusion, I believe, when they walked.
There was
into the
one
office
across
for
the
first
street
time.
from our old station. Short-lived.
Yeah.
The hydration.
It's now an
station.
Indian restaurant, I think.
I didn't realize
Different
pretty
type of
quickly it was a
hydration.
drink that will become our favorite drink.
What was higher level security, this event or Jerry Jones Hall of Fame party that you guys attended?
Oh.
Because both were on a golf course.
Invitation
And
is back there.
the look of this party and some of the pictures I saw reminded me of the Jerry Jones party you guys had to explain to me because I wasn't there.
The Jerry Jones party had more security because you actually had to you took a golf cart driven by Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders to, like, you're in the middle of a golf course. They rented a fairway and put the tent on the fairway. This was just a clubhouse. So once you got in the clubhouse, you're in. No questions asked. You made it through security, you're in. You're on the grounds. So the Jerry Jones party was higher level because you had different levels of that course you could access. And Paul, because he's a Hall of Fame selector, he had the golden band. We got everywhere we wanted to go that night.
Can you imagine being Jerry Jones and getting to a point in life where you're not even going to a party unless it's that as the bare minimum? Right? I don't think that Jerry Jones is showing up to a barbecue at someone's house. He's only doing something if it's that level of pomp and circumstance and the party is that well executed. Must be nice.
Also, I mean, security at this thing, you got to keep in mind, like Justin Timberlake is there.
Yeah.
Playing.
So
Yeah.
the star,
little bit different.
The star power wasn't.
Was
Jerry
Justin
Jones.
Bieber at this wedding or this 1 year
The
anniversary?
Atlanta All-Stars were the band.
The Atlanta All-Stars.
Yeah.
Well, did you dance?
No.
So
I
Outcast.
watched. I
Did
watched
Claire
a lot
dance?
of people do. Claire said she felt like she'd been in a fight the next morning because she danced for 3 straight hours.
She went 10 rounds.
She went 10 rounds. Yeah. She lasted longer than that dude in the fight at the ballpark last week.
Way longer.
That's not tough.
Willing to bet that guy felt worse than her, though. Even after 3 hours of dancing.
maybe. Chad, you get in any fights like that at your ballpark this weekend?
No, we did not. I will say the T-ball coaching, it was a pretty encouraging game on Saturday. We lost, but to a very good team, and our girls listened for the most part. There weren't any huge gaffes that I can remember. I went on Clay Travis's Outkick morning show this morning, and it turned into a 20-minute segment of us trading Little League coaching horror stories. And Clay had some pretty funny ones about coaching his 10-year-old son. When you coach 5- and 6-year-old girls,
Yeah.
it's just so different. I think the comedy comes from parents watching my inability to not emotionally respond to things that go wrong, even when I'm trying not to. I'm always positive with the girls. You know, every time I get on to them a little bit, I always end with something positive and encouraging and tell them good job and to keep listening. But it's impossible to hide those negative reactions at times when things don't go your way.
So, I don't have kids. Don't have the Little League weekends, but I do have a nephew that is Simon's age, Paul's son's age, who is now to the age where I feel like I can watch and have fun watching and not get frustrated with not him, but with certain teammates or coaches or parents. Like I feel like there's an age group that if you just grin and bear it for a couple of years, then you're over on the other side of the hill. You reach the top of the hill and you're on your way down with better play. The kids who are there want to be there. They're not just trying it out. They're athletic enough to play the sport.
Well, they know what winning and losing means, and they know what they need to do. I think that's the biggest difference.
What age
Paul,
is that? Like
you've
8
got
or
a son
9?
at that age where they know what to do, and they know the difference between winning and losing. So once they know the rules and you get to that point, it makes it a lot easier. Here's what I can never fathom. Just coaching one daughter right now. We also have a soon-to-be 2-year-old daughter, so there's going to come a time where they're both going to have games at the same park on the same day. And then there may be one parent with one and another parent with the other. These parents who have 3 to 4 kids, all of Little League age. Now, Hutton, that is a Little League weekend that I can't fathom. We're doing one game on Saturday, and we got the little one there with us, and then we're doing a game or two during the week. Not that big of a deal. The coach of the team we were playing this weekend kept asking when the game was going to end and what the clock said because he had to go coach his other daughter in another game close by. So they were trying to get off the field in T-ball to go coach 10 and 11-year-old softball or whatever it was at that time. Imagine being a parent of multiple kids playing. Now imagine being the head coach of multiple teams.
Of both of those teams.
That your kids are on and having to shift gears immediately from that to another one. I applaud the parents out there that are willing to do that and be the head coach of multiple squads.
A lot of juggling. And when you start traveling, you get spread out, get spread thin. Our lesson this weekend, Sunday, when Simon's team actually got a bye and into a favorable bracket, was about an individual very solid performance and a poor team result. Simon ripped a couple of singles, had a couple good catches, threw a decent inning, but they wound up losing badly. So he's feeling good about himself, feeling bad about what the team did.
Are you excited that he's upset when they lose? I would be.
I mean, he's always been up
good.
You know, he's upset when they lose, but he feels good about what he was able to do. You know, especially when it's building on top of what he didn't do on Saturday. So he comes back from Saturday, you know, when he maybe struck out and didn't have a great at bat, puts together 2 really good at bats. You know, so.
You may think I'm a psychopath, but I'm already predicting the time when I'm going to be upset that my daughter's not more upset that she lost.
Yeah.
That she's going to be so quickly shifting gears from ball playing hat to go to Dairy Queen and get ice cream hat and not care at all about losing the game. Now it's fine.
Yeah.
Because we have to tell them who's winning. They don't know what side of the scoreboard they're on. It's okay. But a few years from now, if there's not a level of being upset about losing, it's going to upset Dad.
Well, you'll have her trained. She'll know it's going to upset Dad, so she'll fake it at the very least.
She's a Withrow. She's going to keep score even though there's not a scoreboard.
We'll find out. She's quite intense already at 5 years old, so hopefully that's going to be the case.
FanDuel.com/OK360 is the website for some great odds. Weekend in review from FanDuel for us. As you see, if you've never tried FanDuel, you can try FanDuel Sportsbook, and if you strike out on your first bet, you can get up to $1,000 back in-site credit to reuse. You opt in by making your first deposit at FanDuel Sportsbook. My biggest hit of the weekend was on UFC 262. Not the co-main, but I think their third or fourth fight of the actual pay-per-view. Barbosa ended the fight with Shane Burgos. FanDuel was offering plus 200 odds on that fight ending in a knockout or by submission. And not going the distance, which that was free money.
No matter who wins.
No matter who won, they were giving plus 200 odds on a
knockout.
A knockout, and the fight ended in the second round. So that was my biggest win of the weekend. I also won against the Braves. I forgot I took this bet on Friday at the very end of the betting Saturday. Just took the money line and won that action.
You took the Braves.
Well, I took the Braves and won $10.
So I knew that this was
big $10 win.
This is what they refer to as hedging your happiness when it's your team. I just knew with my recent gambling luck that if I bet on the Brewers to win Friday night, the Braves would win the game. I just knew that betting the Brewers money line, I would lose the bet, but the Braves would win. Did the same thing on Saturday, and I'm saying, watch, the Braves are going to go out and win Saturday. Sure enough, they did. Did the same thing on Sunday, and I won the bet, but the Braves lost the game. But it brought an end to my losing streak at FanDuel, which was a good thing, a positive development.
I bet strikeouts. I love the K props, so I bet strikeouts last night for your Braves. Is it Yanoa?
Yanoa, yes.
I like to call him
Yanoa.
Don't you know?
It was 5.5. He struck
Sterling
out.
refer to him that way.
He struck out 6, and I think it was only 4 1/3 or 4 2/3. And I won on that.
Was this yesterday? Whenever it was 10-9, the final score, it was 8-0 at one point.
8-0. Braves scored 7. Freddie Freeman hit a grand slam to make it 7 in the 7th, and then the Braves bullpen did exactly what they normally do, and they collapsed after that. And the Braves ended up losing, I think, 10-9, where they had runners on with 2 outs in the 9th. But a very eventful 10-9 loss.
I had a couple different arrangements on the FA Cup on Saturday that did not work out for me and for Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm mad at soccer right now. Not enough ties. I need more draws in soccer.
Too many finishes.
Yeah, too many winners happening. The winners in soccer equals loser for me because my soccer play is just to go and bet that it's going to tie. Especially when it's long odds, I like to go in and bet the tie on these English Premier League soccer matches, and that has not been paying off lately.
The NBA play-in matchups are set to begin tomorrow. Major League Baseball, great odds there at FanDuel. NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs have already started. The Preds play later this evening. We will preview that game against Carolina and much more in the Tennessee Power Hour. NFL minicamps for rookies. That happened across the league. It's lacking one big element of an NFL offseason. We'll just explain and describe what we mean by the NFL actually missing something, actually lacking in an area. That's coming up as well. And a lot to get to with, Chad mentioned the spring sports are in full swing now. You've got the playoffs starting, which is a great time to jump in on FanDuel. Hit us up on Twitter as well, at Outkick360. A lot to discuss today. Headlines from the weekend straight ahead on the Outkick Network.
Most tenants are good people who play by the rules. But sometimes you can get one who's a little deadline challenged. In other words, they're late with the rent. When this happens, you can either spend the precious hours you have left on Earth calling, texting, and emailing them, or you can turn over your property management to Renters Warehouse. Because when we say we'll collect the rent, we'll collect the rent. Need a pen?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Really excited to finally have some in-person Outkick VIP events. We're at 6th and Peabody, Old Smoky, Yeehaw Brewery. Awesome day, great questions, good to shake everybody's hand. It's just good to be able to get out and see everybody.
We love to meet with the people that make us possible as a show, the people that tune in, the people that watch, the people that listen.
A lot of these VIPs interact with us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. And now we get a chance to come out and hang out, watch games, and interact with them the same way we would interact with the three of us on a daily basis. It's awesome.
If you're at a VIP event, you're going to hear more about the inside jokes, stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You can ask us anything. We want to be with listeners and viewers as much as possible, so we're thrilled.
Looking forward to doing a lot more of these VIP events as we continue to grow.
It's an incredible experience. I would advise everyone out there, if you're a fan of Outkick or Outkick 360, to sign up and be a VIP.
Outkick 360 across the Outkick network. Glad you're with us. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for subscribing to the new YouTube channel, Outkick 360 there. Also streaming on the Outkick channel, but we are moving things to our own platform there for the daily stream, for the daily show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We hope you'll ring that bell so that you get all of the alerts anytime we go live and anytime we post new content. Outkick 360 on YouTube. The NBA debuting their play-in format. The 7 and 8 seed, the 9 and 10 seed, they will square off to determine the overall seeding for the NBA playoffs. It has led to some intrigue at the end of the regular season for the NBA, not just for the bottom part of the bracket, but the Clippers lost back-to-back games to two of the worst teams in the league to end their season, which now means they will avoid the Lakers as long as the Lakers continue to play. They'll avoid the Lakers all the way to the conference finals. So there's been some pairing and some matchups throughout this to end the NBA regular season.
Were they half-hearted about it?
I saw reporters joking about it. Like, the Clippers have done it. The Clippers have done it. They've avoided the Lakers.
They were half-hearted about it. They were tanking to avoid the Lakers, which is probably a smart strategy play by them. I'm a little bit more into this than I thought I would be, and a lot of it was watching Grizzlies Warriors yesterday with that game to decide 8 versus 9, or who was going to be the 8 or 9 seed.
I have a theory on this.
In the West. For those that don't know, it's a little bit confusing because it's not just 2 normal play-in games. It's not sudden death.
Well, let's show the graphic, and we'll explain
both.
this and what gets started tomorrow.
Yes. So 7 versus 8, the winner of that game automatically advances to the main tournament. They will be the 7 seed. This is both East and West. The same rules apply to both. The loser of that game will play the winner of the 9 versus 10 game. Loser of 9 versus 10 is out. It's one and done in that game. That is an actual NCAA tournament, March Madness type game. Winner advances to another game, loser is out. But the winner of the 9-10 game will then play the loser of the 7-8 game. The winner of that game will then get the 8 seed.
And so the loser of that is also out.
Correct.
Yes.
What you're looking at here at the top in red, 9th and 10th place in the West, that's Grizzlies, Spurs. The winner advances to take on the loser of Lakers, Warriors in the 7-8 game. The winner of Lakers, Warriors advances to the 7 seed overall. In the East,
I like it. It creates
the way
some
it's
intrigue.
set up right now for the play-in teams, the Celtics and Wizards are the 7 and 8. The Pacers and Hornets are the 9 and 10. Here's my theory on this. The NBA ratings have been terrible. There's no denying that. And the intrigue and the build for this is Steph Curry and the Warriors facing LeBron James and the Lakers. No one is going to be as hyped up to watch the Celtics and Wizards. Everyone's talking about this play-in matchup because it's the Lakers and the Warriors, Steph Curry and LeBron James.
Yeah, that's big.
That's what it comes down to.
That's big. You'd much rather have it be a 7-game series.
That's big, but what does that get you?
Yeah, get you one
Here's
night of good rating.
Here is
and
where,
then one of them is going to potentially disappear.
Well, here's where the fixes in people crowd will start to bemoan the NBA. And granted, they're the 7-8 team, so the odds should be stacked in their favor to advance. But I'm going to be shocked from a ratings perspective if both the Warriors and the Lakers don't advance into the main tournament and get another series. The Lakers will win the play-in game. They'll get the 7 seed, so then they would take on Phoenix in round 1. The Warriors will lose to the Lakers. Then they're going to come out and beat whoever wins that game.
Memphis,
between Memphis. Yeah, so you're going to get both Steph Curry and LeBron James in the main playoffs. I would be shocked if that doesn't happen. Now, for the fixes in crowd with the NBA, you want to win some respect from the fans, but it's not necessarily good for the bottom line because it could affect ratings. If the Lakers and Warriors are out, they both can't be out. If one of those two are out, especially the Lakers, if they were to lose the Warriors and then lose another game, well, that would lend some credence to the league and say, we're legit. The Lakers actually lost because there's a lot of conspiracy theorists saying there's no way the league will allow the Lakers to lose. If it's close at all. So there's going to be calls from Adam Silver to make sure they get in.
Just on officiating?
The NBA is a weird game to watch in that it just feels like at the end of the game, the players can create whatever narrative they want. When you can challenge common foul calls in the game and have it reversed, and then you can just call a dead ball timeout and get it at half court, I like that for end-of-game shot scenarios, but it just feels like you're moving the rules and parameters of the game to set up for one team to succeed as opposed to the other. So, look, I fully believe it'll be Lakers and Warriors that advance to the main tournament, and that's probably good. That's not probably. It is good for the NBA's bottom line and for ratings. But I do think that there would be a certain level of respect I would have for the NBA if the Lakers lost too and LeBron wasn't even in the main playoffs.
Well, here's another thing that'd be good for the NBA, frankly. So if we're buying that the NBA is pushing for things that would help it, and the Nets are the number 2 seed, and obviously very good. The Knicks are a 4 seed and have been resurgent, and they're good, not great. Knicks in particular, being good and going far would help the NBA. The Nets, certainly with their star power.
Yeah, the state of New York, they have
either one of those
two teams with home court advantage to win.
Going far helps the NBA. And the Knicks in particular have not been good in a long time. The Knicks being good, we talk about certain teams being good for their league. Knicks are one of those teams. It's been an eternity for the Knicks. We're talking the Patrick Ewing Knicks. Them being good is good for the league. And Knicks or Nets going far is good for the NBA. Just in terms of the eyeballs that are going to be on, New York City eyeballs on the NBA is going to up the rating.
Well, it's a real test to the star treatment of the NBA. The NBA is a star-driven league, and you need stars to sell. Are people lining up to watch Julius Randle?
Not yet.
And the Knicks? See, this is team versus stars.
Yeah.
Derrick Rose is past his prime. Julius Randle is the star of the Knicks. R.J. Barrett's going to be a really good player.
They're a good team to watch, but they don't have the star power. Nets have the star power.
Right, it's the market. But this is where team versus star comes into conflict because I'm interested in the Knicks because they haven't been good in so long. But if I'm going to tune in to watch a game, I'm probably going to watch Giannis and the Bucks over the Knicks for the star power, even though it's Milwaukee versus Manhattan in terms of market.
You're certainly going to watch the Nets.
I think it would be great for the league for people to be interested in the Knicks because that is a major market team with some history that it's good for the league if they're good, but it's also a team that lacks star power.
Well, some of those guys could become stars in the playoff run. But the Nets are the star power team, right?
Here's the biggest question.
Though Kyrie Irving's not particularly interested in basketball.
Who's the common fan that with no rooting interest in team? Who's the common average fan rooting for individually? The NBA is a league of star power, as Chad's alluding
I don't
to.
know.
Other than Steph Curry, who are you rooting for? Steph Curry is likable. Who's the hero? Chad, you brought this up. The NBA needs a hero. Other than Steph Curry,
who is it?
Who's the hero of this league? Because everyone is hated.
Steph Curry became.
It's not LeBron.
Yeah.
It's not Durant.
LeBron is now as divisive of a sports superstar as you're going to find. So it's definitely not him. They don't have, clearly, we could always go back to Michael Jordan and say they haven't had Michael Jordan since Michael Jordan was in the league, but they just don't have. Hutton, when we started getting back in the NBA, what was the reason? It was the plucky, upstart, high-scoring Golden State Warriors. They became a hero with Steph Curry.
But even LeBron James has been the hero. When he went back to Cleveland, he was the hero. The NBA doesn't have that guy right now, other than Curry, who's bringing the Warriors back to the postseason and winning the scoring title again.
Can Milwaukee be that team? Is he, Giannis, got that?
Giannis is extremely likable. I mean, he would be on my list.
Yeah, he would be close to the top of the list.
If they take off, maybe people get into that storyline. But they're not into that storyline at the start, I don't feel like, right?
Well,
if they get going, maybe you get on board.
We've had this discussion. Look, we're a show that has an enemies list, for God's sake. So we understand the need for a villain and the need for an adversary in sports. And that is a uniting factor in all sports that are successful.
But it's got to be a villain
You got to have someone that you hate.
Villain to somebody.
But this is the problem with the NBA. Everyone hates everyone in the NBA now. There's not... I never thought we'd get into an issue with a league where there's not a good guy to root for. This is the team you want to win. John Elway. Boy, everybody could get behind John Elway winning his first Super Bowl when he was making his run. You go through it, there's always that good guy story. And I'm not saying the NBA is filled with nothing but villains, but in terms of public interest, Steph Curry's won titles. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a good story. He's going to win the MVP. He's the second man ever to win a scoring title past his 33rd birthday. The other one, oh, by the way, is Michael Jordan. So people are going to root for Steph Curry, but I don't see that one uniting star that it's their time to win a title. Or the team that, boy, they've been knocking on the door, and now it's time to win the title. Look at the top seeds in the playoffs. The Utah Jazz, the Phoenix Suns. Anyone heroic on these teams that I need to be getting behind? Maybe there are, and I'm missing the boat. The Philadelphia 76ers, is that a roster that inspires a unifying moment of sports fans everywhere to damn it, the Sixers got to win it this year. It's their year. It's going to happen.
How about
I just don't see
Westbrook?
it.
Maybe like if the Wizards
Westbrook
do
is
something.
not a likable dude.
Well,
he is a malcontent that had a huge attitude problem that's worked his way out of every good
Making
situation.
$41 million this year.
Selfish.
Statistically, he's interesting because of the triple-double.
Yeah, he can do it
But
all.
again, I mean,
but
there's plenty of guys statistically. I mean, Carmelo Anthony statistically was a great player, but I don't know that many people are rooting for Carmelo Anthony, who's never seen a shot he doesn't like.
the
So I
Wizards
think
are an
the
example
winner-
of a team like the Knicks. You root for, like, I don't know if they have villains, meaning like you're not gravitating to root for them to win a title. But they were at one point like 8-14 overall.
Yeah.
And I saw one of the sports books put out that someone put $10,000 back in February on the Wizards to win the title. That wager will win that person $5 million. That was the odds against the Wizards to win a title, and now they're among the top teams in the league. How quickly they turn things
I don't want to
around.
get big into the storyline because the storyline annoys the crap out of me. But I think we're hitting here on the lack of hero. And I just, listen, I've said for years, I don't think the product is that good. It's not that compelling to me. And so in this overwhelming conversation about the ratings being down, the people who want to talk about the wokeness killing them miss this.
It's a
to
huge
me.
problem. They have not missed it.
It's definitely a part of it.
It's a huge issue for them.
I'm saying it's a part of it, but they failed to mention that the quality of the product isn't good, and that the hero stuff isn't good.
How many years, though, Paul, have I been saying that you can tune into the final 3 minutes of the NBA and get your game?
I've said it
years.
forever.
And all of a sudden the ratings are bad. All of a sudden
but the ratings
quality's
were
down.
fine then. I mean, I don't. Here's where I would go with.
I think plenty of people like me have turned off the NBA because it's not interesting.
And there were
Not
plenty of
because of
people,
the
unlike you, who are still watching that no longer do.
I agree. I think there's a lot of people on both ends of that. And it is an issue. And I would say this, Paul, to your thing about the quality of the game is down, how much does the wokeness contribute to the quality of the game being down? Because players aren't getting worse.
No, they're not. They're getting better.
You mentioned Kyrie Irving doesn't seem to be interested in playing basketball. I could say that about LeBron James at times, based on things that he seems more interested in. There's a lot of, this happened in this city, so we're not playing for the next week. What?
There hasn't been any of that this year.
But I mean, there's times where that happens, right? So, why do you think the quality of the game's down?
I just
could that be a contributing factor to it?
No, because it's.
You don't think you said Kyrie Irving's not interested in playing basketball?
It's not been good for a long time. It's not been good. NBA basketball to me has not been a compelling
product. But then
product
why
for
did the
a long
ratings
time.
just suddenly go down as steeply as they
I don't
have?
know. I don't know
Because
people
I
who
don't
watch
think
the
it's
NBA.
gotten. I don't think it's gotten. I'll say it this way. I don't think the quality of the game has gotten that much drastically worse to contribute to it over the last year. I do think that while not a factor for everyone, you're right there. It is a factor for a lot of people that like sports that would have watched the NBA otherwise.
I'm merely saying the people I know who stopped watching the NBA have stopped a good while ago, and they stopped because the marketplace became filled with a lot of other options to go to Netflix and whatever, and they decided my sporting landscape
the
is going to
ratings
include
dropped
fewer sports.
34%. People are referencing the 34% drop in viewership, and you think it's just because the product is worse? The final 3 minutes has been a theme of me since we've been together doing a show.
I say the wokeness is an ingredient of it, but I keep reading, especially at our site, that's all it is. It went woke and people turned it off, and they're not acknowledging that the game is a boring game. It's not very exciting, and that's why I've turned it off, and that's why a lot of people have turned it off, and I don't think it got boring because it went woke.
I don't know what else would contribute to that steep of a drop, though, other than that. The NBA...
Well, to me, it's been boring for 20 years.
I know, but Paul, it's a league based on stars.
Yep.
And if everyone could get behind the star of the league, people will watch.
Well, part of
that's
part
proven
of it is that
when LeBron was
west.
a hero, go look at those finals ratings.
He went west. That was part of it. We agreed on this when it happened. That the star
I'm doing
power
like the LeBron
shift,
James.
the star power shift.
The gift right now as I talk to you.
The star power shift west hurt them. The Lakers being on late for the East Coast is a bad shift.
They're on in prime time every weekend because of the Lakers.
And Steph Curry being West Coast.
Again, the Warriors had no problems getting ratings 4 or 5 years ago.
Massive ratings.
And now it's been a
But it's
steep
still
drop.
a 10 o'clock game on the East Coast.
Now
they need an East Coast balance. Wouldn't you agree? The East Coast star ratio is down.
Yes, but it was down. I mean, other than LeBron James in Cleveland, It was down then too, and you still had. I mean,
Sunday afternoon they're tipping off at 3:00.
again,
Sunday afternoon, but what about Tuesday
That's
night?
the national broadcast.
when the
At
Lakers-
TNT, they're tipping off at 9 p.m.
When Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal were on the Lakers, were we saying, the league's got a real issue with those West Coast tip times?
No.
With those guys being there. When Magic Johnson was on the Lakers and the Showtime teams, boy, if the Lakers were in the Central Time Zone, it would really help. That is a banner franchise in the league. I'll concede your point on this. I think a lot of the people complaining about wokeness in the NBA aren't watching the NBA anyways. So the loudest people about it weren't watching the last 5 years regardless. But you have to start to pinpoint why something declines so steeply when other major sports don't. We're not seeing that big of a drop in baseball, right? We're not seeing 34% ratings drops in other sports. So if you can pinpoint the reason other than it got 34% worse in the last 2 years, I don't think it's a fact.
I think it's a combination of reasons.
And wokeness being one of them.
I said from the start, it's one of them. But I keep reading stuff, particularly at our site, that's it. And that's not it.
Let's mention our site, Outkick, which we endorse. Outkick.com, part of Outkick 360. And let me say, the Major League Baseball ratings are back from 2020.
They're up.
NBA's not. NBA's not. And we have, as a society, have a problem with the length of Major League Baseball games and how boring the sport is. Meanwhile, I can tell you that 90% of these NBA games will be a 7 points or less matchup with 3 minutes to play. And that's been going on for years. But yet, 34% drop in viewership over the last year.
I mean, I can't think of a bigger reason. Is the issue that I'm pointing to. I mean, you can say it's other factors, but I can't think of a bigger issue for it. Now, a lot of people would argue Major League Baseball rating is going to tank because of the decision in Atlanta for the All-Star game, and they haven't at this point. I also think that there's a difference with a league making a decision about an All-Star game and players in the league that you watch. I don't know that there's this big issue with fans saying, I'm not watching the Angels because Mike Trout is woke. Or I'm not watching the Phillies
but you're doing that with LeBron.
Because Andrew McCutchen is, whatever he may be. Like, I don't think that's as big of an issue. It's that, and I'll say it, LeBron James, a great player. He is killing the NBA. He's hurting the NBA with their fans. You can sit and argue if that's right or wrong. It doesn't matter. I'm speaking from a business perspective. He is turning a lot of America off. And in turn, people don't care as much about the Lakers. But here's the sad part about it. People are still going to tune the Lakers more than any other team because there's no true hero. That gets back to our original point. There's no true hero in the NBA right now. Maybe it is Giannis in the Bucks. Hell, I placed a futures bet on the Bucks at FanDuel Sportsbook to win the championship, hoping that they'll win it because I'd like to see that franchise and him win a title.
They would have liked for him not to have missed however many games he missed with his ankle so he wasn't in a play-in game situation.
And they weren't playing great before then anyway, as a team, after winning the title.
They probably would have been in a better situation.
What's interesting, though, is hypothetically, and I'm with Chad, I don't expect them to get bounced early, but hypothetically, if they do, can the NBA capitalize on building not just new stars, but new teams and interest if the Knicks continue to play well, if you can tell the Wizard story properly, if you have Giannis.
They've got no choice, right? I mean, those are the storylines that are going to be there.
The other option would be that they don't capitalize and they just wait on LeBron to tip off the season next year and show him on national TV every week.
Those storylines kind of have to emerge. Whether they can capitalize on them or not is a story that remains to be seen.
Well, that's my question. Can they make people care?
Yeah, I don't know. If the Knicks are one of them, I think New York will care, and New York caring goes a long way towards the NBA being more successful or not. I think they'd certainly prefer that than Atlanta winning the first round series for sure.
Yes.
But tell me what the other storylines are going to be.
The only
is Utah
way
going to the finals going to be good for the NBA and create compelling storylines that are going to get me involved? No.
Well, I mean, they should tell the Conley story better. I mean, if you don't know that Mike Conley plays for the Utah Jazz, that's your problem with them being the 1 seed and being and they're on SportsCenter every night with the headlines because they're the 1 seed. But beyond that, they need to tell that whole season story better instead of just showing. And again, it goes back to we're interested in Warriors Lakers.
Right.
And not interested in the rest of this playoff
I think you're right,
series.
but how do they tell it better? They're kind of
This
at
is
a crossroads.
also where I think
they are.
that this is where I think the league, and probably a little bit unfairly, they're going to cast everything in the shadow of LeBron James. You know, going back to the political stuff with LeBron. LeBron is the star of the league, and LeBron says this on Twitter and does that, and now the whole league is quote unquote woke, right? Well, that's probably a little bit unfair to a lot of the teams that aren't political at all in the league. Maybe the Utah Jazz, for instance, or the Phoenix Suns, or go down the list. The Warriors and Steve Kerr, I think, cast a big shadow on that for people that would make that argument. But what does the league need to have happen for it to be at its height? I think
they
it
have
takes,
to win.
I mean, Paul's going to be pissed off at this, but I think it takes an apolitical superstar in New York, Boston, LA, or someone approaching the level of Michael Jordan that can go somewhere and be a star and unite an entire region behind an NBA team.
Well, it's not going to be Michael Jordan level. I think.
Yeah, and I don't think you could get to that again, but
He's saying the guy that can balance both.
Someone who is just all ball. That can go
All
somewhere
ball
and
you
unite.
can get.
If the Knicks got a superstar to go with Julius Randle there right now, and they're a number 2 or number 1 seed for 4 or 5 straight years, that brings basketball back in New York City. Much more so than the Brooklyn Nets
If they had
having
gotten
star
Zion,
power.
if they had gotten Zion,
See,
Now we're talking.
all right. If they had gotten Zion and they were
Yeah.
the 3rd seed instead of the 4th seed, and they were doing that, and I don't know, I don't even know how he's played this year, but would that be the cusp of what we're talking about? And should they have made a cold envelope, the equivalent of a cold envelope there, for all the fixes in stuff we talk in the NBA? That seems to me like if you're going to line things up for yourself the way everybody thinks the NBA lines things up for themselves, that would have been a good proactive move. You're talking about the storyline, the reinventing, the crossroads. You have an idea? Or you're just saying they got to find the idea?
I mean, they
tell the story better.
If they want to grow the overall brand back to the nightly occurrence of us paying attention to more than one series out of 8 matchups that we're previewing, they have to show these teams more. They have to be willing to show Utah on a nightly basis. And TNT's doing that to some extent because they have no other choice. They're the top team in the league, and you can build to big matchups throughout the season. But, I mean, if they have the opportunity to show the 7-seed Lakers or the 1-seed Utah Jazz, they're going to show the Lakers.
Look, I'm a test case here. I'm a Knicks guy that's been out on the NBA for a long time. I'm going to dip my toe in the water on the Knicks in this series. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to sit down and watch 3 hours, but I'm going to, I'll give them a half an hour at a certain point in time. Does this team grab me? Does the telecast grab me? If it does, I'll come back for more. If it doesn't, it's not going to be hard for me not to watch much more than the highlights. So I'll be a test case here for us to a degree.
We need more of Steph Curry's shirtless celebration yesterday. Just a raw, emotional moment.
Winning the scoring title in the finale.
Paying tribute to Baron Davis, a former Golden State Warrior also, with his celebration. But you need – passion unites people at times. And I think that for too long, the NBA, when I see how the NBA is covered, when I see how it's written about, it's a very snarky, almost completely detached type mentality about it, where you're talking about players and not teams as much, and how these guys would play together and would they get along and this and that, and far less passion. It's not a sport that invokes passionate responses from fans of individual teams.
I'm more into watching.
I think it needs to get back to more of that true anger and passionate responses
I don't know if we can get back there.
And teams.
I'm more into watching Steph Curry warm up than I'm into watching Steph Curry play.
I mean,
but I watched Steph Curry bury 2 threes to put the Grizz away yesterday. I'm watching it live, and that place is going nuts in San Francisco. And he's got the shirt off, and he's getting the crowd. And I'm thinking, yes, more of this. more of you and your fans going crazy in a playoff atmosphere where you can feel the crowd. Damian Lillard's shot, years ago, where that you have the overhead shots in Portland where everyone goes nuts. That, to me, is what's going to get a sport back. And I just think that the way the league is covered, the people who write about it, the people who talk about it the most, it's just not for a large portion of America that want to watch sports because they want to actually feel like they can get into something to the level that is disproportionate to how they should get into it.
Correct me.
Right? We should be a little more crazy about it than we should be. We should take it out of perspective sometimes.
Isn't Giannis the closest we have to that? Because we gravitated to Kawhi Leonard. You mentioned the shot by. You mentioned the shot.
He's a great
top
example.
10 shots in NBA history.
Yeah.
Is that one that he hit in the corner that bounced around that dropped in for the Raptors?
Were we there with them at the beginning of that run, or not until they started going?
No, they got not until they started going in the postseason.
That's what we need
because we didn't believe in Toronto because Toronto had been there and been close, but had never knocked down the door. And they finally did it, and they go on to beat the Warriors that year, Raptors, and then he leaves. So it's certainly not Durant, but Giannis is next in line for me because he stayed where he was. He signed that multi-million-dollar contract to stay in Milwaukee, and now can he go and do that title run?
I think that Giannis could become Dirk Nowitzki. And what I mean by that is that Mavs Heat finals were rated great when they went head-to-head, and the Mavs won their title. And just those series, because it did become good versus bad in the eyes of a lot. Here is Dirk Nowitzki, who stayed one place his whole career. And even though he's German, he's foreign, he's not American, America got behind him because they were going against LeBron James and the supergroup that all teamed up to go to Miami, a franchise that not as many people care about.
Right.
And most of America got behind that story. I think that Giannis, even though he's not from here, is a guy that could unite people in that way because he took a chance on Milwaukee being the team that he's going to win titles with. So if Milwaukee continues to be a power player and gets up that level, I think that, to me, is the comparison. Could Giannis and Milwaukee get to the point of Dirk Nowitzki, late career, winning a title with Dallas, making that type of run? I think that would be pretty cool to watch.
And being a career guy for them.
Yes, and that's what it would take.
So he's really the big hope from this argument that you're wanting to reach out and have.
This is where I think that
because Curry's now 33.
Well, immediately you brought up the Raptors, and I think Canadian not going to be a uniting factor. That's why people didn't get behind them as much as they would another team. Then I think of Giannis, and I think foreign.
But even
and for a lot of
Kawhi
American
wanted out of
sports
San
fans,
Antonio.
That's an issue at times, but I don't think it was an issue for Dirk Nowitzki, who's from Germany. I think American fans had no problem rooting for Dirk to win his title.
I'm just trying to think of the last individual that we got. It was Kawhi Leonard and the way that he led that team to a championship, even though he had left San Antonio to end up in Toronto. And now you've got Giannis who has been there and decided to stay in the small market. But Milwaukee's going to have to go through, they've got to get through Miami in round one, but after that, Brooklyn. After that, potentially the Knicks, if not the Knicks, Philadelphia. So they're going to have to beat these big market teams that everyone's in the national media is going to be behind. That's just the fact of it.
Well, and who are the Lakers are going to be the 7 seed at best, right?
Yep.
And who are the two favorites to play in the finals? It's the Lakers and the Nets. Why? Star power. That's it. I mean, I have a hard time picking those teams to lose in a best-of-7 series because LeBron James and Anthony Davis and then the big three with Brooklyn, even though they're going up against teams that had better seasons, I don't think it's going to matter.
What is lacking from the NFL offseason right now? We'll tell you that as rookie minicamps were underway this weekend. That is straight ahead. What's not lacking are your options with Renters Warehouse.
Love, love, love talking about Renters Warehouse. I've talked about them for years, and what's great about a company like Renters Warehouse is they find ways to help you and your financial situation. A question for you. Do you own rental property and need cash? Are you worried about receiving rent on time? These are uncertain times for for so many people, especially when you're trying to find renters for your rental property. You can get the most out of your real estate investment by receiving a full year of rent paid up front. You heard me correctly. That's up to a year of rent payments in your pocket right now. By giving your money up front, Renters Warehouse helps minimize risk and provides financial flexibility so you can build long-term wealth. Renters Warehouse, Nashville's leader in property management, is the only company providing upfront rent. The upfront rent program is available for a limited time. Call Renters Warehouse Nashville. That number, you can see it on the screen, 615-398-9550, or visit rwnashville.com to see if you qualify. RentersWarehouse.com, helping maximize your property investment potential. Do it the Renters Warehouse way and get tomorrow's rent today.
NFL headlines from the weekend next on Outkick 360.
But what about their house? Even in a good market, you should think twice before selling. The smarter financial decision might be renting instead, especially when you hire the professional landlords at Renters Warehouse. Don't sell out, cash in. Visit renterswarehouse.com right now and find out how much your house could rent for. A rental price analysis is totally free. So what have you got to lose? I'll take that guitar.
Outkick 360 across the Outkick Network, alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton. The NFL dominates 12 months out of the year. You can always find a great discussion point in sports around the National Football League. But they're lacking this time of year, right after the NFL draft. And this is by their own doing, by their own rules and setups within organizations. They had rookie minicamps happen right after all the hype of the draft, headline after headline after headline after headline. Things are opened up for reporters to go in and observe, and then these reporters are told they're not allowed to report anything that they observe. Handcuffed to the information that we get after players are drafted and signed as undrafted free agents. The biggest headline from the weekend of NFL camps being open is the prank that was pulled on a player at Austin Peay for showing up because he thought he was being invited for a tryout when in fact someone was pranking him on a cell phone pretending to be defensive coordinator Dean Pease. A player from Austin Peay who didn't even participate in drills is the headline across the league because of the reporters' lack and ability to report on things that they observe, because teams and the league itself won't allow it right now in May. It's ridiculous. They should allow for more things, more tidbits, more nuggets to be out there instead of reading the rumors and what end up being facts from Peter King and Adam Schefter after the fact. Whenever they call around to individual teams and ask how things are going, they get more information than the local reporters in each individual NFL city. I feel like I should have saved this for primary complaint, but there's a lack of NFL headlines
You're on a
when
roll.
right
Keep it up.
now there should be a plethora of them because every team had rookies on the field.
Well, we'll talk more about this in the Tennessee Power Hour coming up. I was at the Titans rookie minicamp practice on Saturday, one of 3 that's open to the media. And I'm always going to want more rather than less. So I'm completely on board with what Hutton's saying, and I agree with it. I watched the Titans' second-round pick, offensive lineman Dylan Radins. And I saw him being coached. Now, I could write broadly that, he picked up on a strong coaching point and executed it, from one snap to another snap. So that's an encouraging thing for a Titans fan to know that this guy is picking up on things well. But it'd be much more interesting if I could tell you, this is not giving away the house, what this coaching point is. It's a basic, but offensive line theme here. But if I could tell you a little bit about the interaction between this coach and this player, it would be meat on the bone for a Titans fan, and it's not giving away anything. Now, at least in a previous time, I don't want to say bait, it's not trickery, but I could ask Mike Vrabel in a personal conversation a question about it or Radins about it in a way that could get them talking about it, which then frees me to write about it. But when I'm just on a Zoom call with them both, I want to waste my one question on asking that thing and whatever to unlock it? It's too complicated. I'm not blaming the Titans on this. The biggest story that came out this weekend from a camp was Travis Etienne in Jacksonville working as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Well, Urban Meyer, I'm sure, gave that up, right? If he doesn't give that up, there was a scenario where he could have worked that way for 3 days and Jacksonville writers not been able to write about it. And I think they let them write about it so they could fully contextualize it. The story is that for this camp and at this stage, they're going to work him as a wide receiver because once everybody's around, they know he could work as a running back, and they want to layer on top of that him doing wide receiver things so he could be a fully well-rounded weapon. Now, that's a good story, but there's one.
If you are using the excuse that there is a competitive advantage to a practice that took place over this past week in the middle of May, you are a loser. That's just how I describe you.
GTFO.
If you were referencing a practice in May and how it's going to affect September the 12th, you are a loser.
There's no full offense, no full defense.
Well, there's a show that I love that I talk a lot about, For All Mankind. I'm trying to get everyone to watch it, right? Part of the For All Mankind plot is the Soviets and the United States in this space race and technology hiding their secrets from the opposition so they don't get the keys to get to Mars quicker or to build a bigger space station on the moon. They're not trying to give away their science and their tech to the USSR, or the Soviets aren't trying to give it to the United States. NFL organizations treat rookie minicamps like a damn map to Mars that they're protecting. What are they possibly doing?
There's not much going on
that they can't show the league what they're doing? It is very simple, and we love sports for a number of reasons. One of them is how simple football can be. It takes better players that are developed better than other teams, paired with good coaches who make good in-game decisions, and good scheme. There's not a single scheme out there that these football coaches that have reached the National Football League level have not seen at some point. There is no state secret that you can protect. The Manhattan Project is not happening at whatever sports park, medical facility named it over in Nashville or any other place. Right. Oppenheimer is not creating the atom bomb inside a bubble of one of these teams with a bunch of rookies as you're showing them pad leverage. I don't understand why they protect it like they're in the Central Intelligence Agency, and I never will. There is nothing that needs to be protected at rookie minicamps.
Blocking, tackling, running. Look, I'm
oh my gosh, that drill that I saw, I've never seen before.
I'm not the source of this complaint, but because I'm resigned to it already. And here's the counterbalance to this, Hutton. they don't care
Well,
that the stories coming out aren't interesting because there are stories coming out.
I know.
And we're still going to talk about them, and everybody's still pro football
the
talk
NFL
still has a list of
the
stories.
NFL dominates because they're entertaining.
It's not entertaining.
This time of the year is a complete bore. I mean, what happens at these camps? They want to act like it's all secretive behind lock and key. They're learning how to stretch properly for when the veterans show up in training camp and they don't have to teach these guys what to do. They're laying the foundation and groundwork for how to practice with their NFL organization. That's all this is.
And somebody today in the Nashville market, one of us heard today, commended Des Fitzpatrick for his limberness during stretch. And actually said, correctly, you heard this, that this is going to be a key of him making this team. Is this right?
This was
this is analysis.
It was something that was said, but the person was quoting someone else who wrote it.
As if a fourth-round pick is getting cut.
Complimenting Des Fitzpatrick
for not being tight
on his flexibility during the stretch period.
He's flexible. A fourth-round receiver is flexible, ladies and gentlemen.
But isn't it amazing that there's such a wide gap between NFL interest and every other sport? And I would put even college football on that list. I really think it's NFL and then probably college football second in America, but it's such a wide gap between the two. I think a lot of other niche sports gaining in popularity has contributed to that because interest is spread out, but everyone's interested in NFL. So they can do whatever they want. I can sit here and complain about it and say they're treating it like they're scientists protecting secrets, but the bottom line is we're still going to care regardless of how much access they give reporters. It's just not going to change anything. That's how wide the gap is in interest and how important the NFL is right now.
I think they could even argue because of their big-headedness about it, it creates more intrigue. More intrigue.
Part of this is also a media issue. As a sports media, we play in to these big headlines. Oh, rookie minicamp took place, and we're not allowed to report on anything, but here's a big headline. You know, it's boring, and the media wants to act like it's some breaking news every day within this league. When we're here to tell you, because of these restrictions, there's nothing interesting that's out there right now.
There's nothing you could write off of this practice.
Everything that's being discussed is either off the field, or it is rumor or in some cases it's rumor and fact both. Where national reporters are telling us about Aaron Rodgers and what the Packers are wanting in return, those types of details. It's not about what just happened here, and the league has an opportunity to create fresh storylines by allowing good reporters some one-on-one access with a coach. How dare they speak with a coach right now that's not on a Zoom chat? It's not allowed unless it's in a group setting. To me, that they're missing. It's a swing and a miss on the league right now for a sports public that's sitting around on the device looking for a reason to talk more football. I don't think you can be oversaturated with it right now. I really don't.
No. And the things you get out of this, look, I wrote what did I write? A notes column.
Which was very good.
Yeah, you did a good job of making it somewhat interesting.
For what you're allowed to do, but you're also gleaning from a chat where you had 40 other media members taking...
I didn't quote anybody.
But my point is you're asking a question that 39 other people get to hear the answer to. There's no immediate access.
And look, here are the two draft picks. Here are the two draft picks running a ladder. Look, the first guy, the fourth-round pick, looks okay, needs some polish. Here's the sixth-round draft pick, clearly not very good at it yet. That's the extent of the kind of stuff you're going to get out of something like that. Are you eating that up? For the sake of my website business, I hope so.
Yes, and from the topics that we'll have
this one was a free one. Go read it. It didn't cost you a penny.
Our pledge is we are going to be more entertaining than an NFL rookie minicamp weekend. Regurgitated headlines from a local and national media.
A guy's limber. He's limber.
Coming up, playoffs begin right here in our city, and for the Nashville Predators across the NHL. We'll get into that. We will talk some specifics about the Titans today. We'll get into some headlines that we do want to discuss with some coaches and some new players and some of what Paul did write and was able to observe. Plenty of storylines there. Rashad Weaver was there this weekend. We'll discuss Vrabel's comments and what he did have to say after the practice. That is all straight ahead on the Tennessee Power Hour for Outkick 360. Hang with us.
there's money in your house. But if you're thinking of selling instead of renting, you might be missing it. Even in a hot housing market, selling your home can leave money on the table, while renting can give you a rich blend of benefits. Not just cold hard cash, but steady, reliable cash flow. When it comes to selling versus renting your home, renting can make a lot more sense.
Find out how much your home will rent for. RentersWarehouse.com.
Outkick 360 and the Tennessee Power Hour. Alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Koharski, I'm Jonathan Hutton. If you're watching on YouTube through the new channel, we appreciate you. Outkick 360's new YouTube channel streaming live every single day, plus new content posted after we go live. You can be alerted to that by hitting that bell. After you subscribe to the channel, you ring the bell, and we alert you anytime we post new content there. You can also take advantage of a great offer by subscribing to the YouTube channel through Outkick 360. You can go to Outkick.com and become a VIP. Outkick.com/VIP360. 30% off VIP right now by subscribing on the YouTube channel and going to Outkick.com/VIP360. 30% off becoming a VIP at the site. Exclusive content. You've seen the commercials, heard the commercials. where we run the promo that we did from Yeehaw back in March. Here is to doing some other big events in the coming weeks and months ahead for the summer and all the opportunities through the VIP options. Preds start the playoffs tonight in Carolina. Arvidsson, he is back. And we get to see if the Preds can steal one of 2 games. That's the goal here. Flip home ice and come back to Nashville on Friday with a series that's tied 1-1. If that's the case, and 12,000 are able or will be in attendance at Bridgestone, crank it up, because if they can get one of 2 games in Carolina, they've got a great chance, I think, of winning the series.
David Reed excited that RV, his and Lindsay's dog's namesake, is going to be eligible and playing. My biggest question is, we all know the obvious. UC Saros has to play great. I mean, every hockey NHL playoff series can turn on the play of the goalie when they get hot. So we know that that's a given, that UC Saros has to continue what he's done since March 15th, which has been the best goalie in the NHL, if the Preds are going to pull the upset and win this series. My question, guys, with this team is, they know the formula. They showed it in that clinching win against Carolina in Nashville just a couple weeks ago. You limit their slot opportunities. You put pressure on them. You get great goalie play. My question is, are they capable of doing that 4 times in this series? I don't know if they are against this team.
I don't know what Carolina was playing for in either of those 2 games.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No,
so I don't know.
Again, at full strength in a playoff, they know what to do. Can they do it? Do they have the guns to do it? Especially when their 2 highest paid forwards don't do anything for them.
They've got to do more.
I can't get that excited, because those games didn't mean that much to both. Didn't mean the same amount to both sides. Saros, .941 save percentage since March 18th. Saros last year against Arizona, .895. Hasn't proven it in the playoffs.
Huge
yet.
layoff, though, because of COVID leading into that. So it was almost like starting the season
But
over.
that's the evidence you have. And then I go to Duchesne, who you're talking about there, Chad, who's like a third liner now, a guy that you did not sign and you are not paying at a rate for that role, who said recently, it's been a weird stretch almost since I got here in terms of weird bounces. I do not want to hear a damn thing about your weird bounces, Matt. You have got to step up and play like the guy they signed you to be in this series. And while all these other guys whose games have risen to the occasion down the stretch for this team maintain their levels, which are a lot closer to the level that you're supposed to be at. Everybody needs to rise. And if you're not at that level, I just don't know that that this team's going to overachieve.
Forsberg, Johansson, Duchesne, Arvidsson, got to bring it.
They got to be
have
huge.
to bring it ahead of and you're right. This is like saying, if the team can stay healthy, they can do X, Y, Z. Saros has to play great. We know that. Carolina has used a couple different goaltenders throughout the year. The difference is Carolina plays great in front of their goaltender. The Preds have to do that. How many times have we come in over the last 3 weeks, even during some of the wins, and they allow that 3-goal stretch where they're up 3-0, all of a sudden it's tied 3-3. Preds end up winning some of those matchups in overtime, but you have screenshots.
Yeah, we put up those screenshots with 3 guys in alone on the goalie.
That can't happen against the Hurricanes this week.
Yeah, Luke Cunning's a good story at 23 years old, but he can't be the one leading your offensive charge the way he has in many games in the back half of this season.
Or let him lead it, but he can lead it by a little bit. Those other guys have to be up there with him. He can't be a solo act.
And I'm with you, Paul. I know that Matt Duchene's battled injuries, and that's unfortunate for this season and has led to the lack of stats. But I would really love for Matt Duchene to say, I'm getting paid top dollar to put the biscuit in the basket. I need to start doing that more. I'm not going to lay out any excuses. That needs to happen for us in this series if we're going to advance. I'd love to hear more of that from him, regardless of what he thinks about puck luck
and bounces
or bounces and how it's gone this season.
Are there big-time guys around the league talking so much about puck luck and bounces?
I've heard that for years. I mean, it's just part of the.
So
again,
regularly?
it's a crutch excuse that shouldn't be validated as much as it is.
And he may
Not
be
by him.
right. I just don't want to hear it.
Yes, be quiet.
And I don't think
Well,
any fan wants
There
to
are
hear
lucky
it.
bounces, right? There are lucky bounces in the sport. But that can't be one of your go-to reasons for why you lost a series or
well,
why
I don't
you're
hear
playing
him
so
talking about it when they get fortunate bounces.
well. Right.
Well, and it's.
So that's the point. Yeah, you're right.
I think it's healthy to have a certain bit of selfishness when you're the highest paid forward on your team. When you're making $8 million a year and there's guys making less than $1 million that are outperforming you statistically. I'm watching this Formula F1 Drive to Survive on Netflix, which I highly recommend. It's great. Those teammates hate each other. There's 2 drivers for every team, and they're not happy when their teammate wins because they want to justify their money they're making on that team, and they're driving the same car. So when you're driving the same car and you're not winning and the other guy is, that's a direct indictment on you. If I'm Matt Duchene, or I'm one of these guys, Johansson, that's making this much money, when other guys that are younger and hungrier are scoring and driving the offense, that's a direct indictment on you. Now, I'm not saying be angry for your teammate when they score or do something right, but there has to be some pride in that also, right? If you're the one that's being paid to produce and paid to put the biscuit in the basket, I think it's healthy to be a little bit miffed when you're not the one producing at that level. And you need those guys to be that selfish in a series like this if you're going to pull off the shocker.
You say if he's doing it, I damn well better be doing it. Because it's supposed to be the other way around. The kid's supposed to be looking at you, trying to match your level.
Well, can the Preds match that defensive quality that Carolina can have in front of the net? You know, again, can they make this? Can they muck it up? Can they muddy the waters a bit and be the more physical team? If they can win the series because they're playing. We mentioned we don't know what Carolina was playing for at the end of the year. They're a 1 seed. They're really good. The Preds in Vegas, among the worst odds in the league, if not, I haven't seen the updated ones this morning, they may be the worst odds in the league to win the Cup among the teams available. But they have been playing really good hockey as of late over the last month and a half. So can that carry over to a series and an opponent that you know really well?
Starts in goal. We've talked,
Yes.
and this is a team that's had good goaltending throughout its existence, really.
And they have it now.
And how many playoff series have they won because of a goalie standing on his head and really just taking it away from the other team? Not a lot.
I think 27-1 is the record from March 15th on in the back half of the season. If someone says they can't do it or they can't go on a run, St. Louis Blues 2019. To me, that's the example. They got a goalie who got hot. They were the worst team in hockey. They changed coaches, was the difference. They got hot at the right time. They went on a run. They won the Stanley Cup. That's a very recent example of what could happen for the Preds if they ride this hot streak. Because, Hutton, you mentioned it. What was Carolina playing for in that game? Not much. What has Nashville been playing for since March? Everything.
Playoffs.
They've been a playoff team since March. So does that help them going into this series? And, Paul, as you said, we'll start to know tonight.
And I think Paul brought up a great point last week about not knowing. Yeah, not knowing exactly when Game 1 would be. When they finally announced it, you got a long layoff here without the momentum. So
that's a challenge.
Yeah, how much does that factor into getting everything going energy-wise tonight in Carolina?
This other thing that we've talked about with the young guys doing well. You got Jeannot and Olivier and Tolvanen and Trennan and on and on. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that have appeared in at least 10 games. Rookies. Tied with the Blackhawks, this is according to Adam Vingan, for the most in the league, and they all have done good things, right? Look to have solid futures. So Vingan took this in a mailbag. Why didn't they go with these guys early? You know, we were kind of talking about you had to choose between the youth movement or kind of sticking with it. Well, it turns out that the youth movement was the way to go in terms of getting where they wanted to go. And so the question is, why didn't they go with it? They put it on hold until the injuries came out. and the younger, hungrier players, if they had been in the lineup sooner, this team might be in better standing and not be playing against somebody as good as Carolina in the beginning. Did Poyle kind of mismanage this thing and not believe in these kids as much as they should have, considering what they did when they got their chances?
I think it's easy to second guess that, but you could also make the argument that he put them in at exactly the right time based on the finish of the season. That he was waiting to see until it was time if they could get a spark, and then they came in and gave the spark, and it worked out because they got to the playoffs.
Well, they came in because of injuries, really.
Yeah.
They came in, and the younger players, I think it's important to keep in mind, had not played in a while. You know, you didn't have the AHL in 2020, so you didn't have they had an extremely long layoff. We know how long it took Tolvanen to get going. It's not like they didn't try to play him.
Yeah, his track was a lot slower than we initially expected.
But I also think they brought in some vets in the offseason, and you go with the vets first and see where that leads you. And ultimately, would you like to be the 1 seed? Yes. I mean, you want to be where Carolina is, but you're still going to play Carolina, Florida, and Tampa Bay if you're the 4. Like you know you're playing ahead of you 3 really good teams either way. So they got in. Their story isn't fully written yet. I think if they missed the playoffs, I would buy into needing to inject the youth movement a little earlier than what they did.
Yeah, if they were Dallas, for instance, they just missed the playoffs, then your second guess is spot on.
Yes, and he may have written the response to this mailbag prior to the playoffs being set and knowing that they were in. The Vingan, I'm saying. My overall point is they're in, and how much do we reference the Titans starting 5-0 last year? The Preds started slow, and now they're heating up at the right time. The Titans were unbeaten to start, playing great, and then got kicked around at Green Bay on national TV, and they got pushed around by Baltimore in the playoffs. So, and nearly lost on the road against Houston and Deshaun Watson in the final week in a shootout. So the Preds are playing really strong right now. Can they carry that into a top team?
I mean, I think to your point, for the Titans, we remember mostly Baltimore. And I don't know if we focus much on where they were strong and where they were weak during the regular season. It's all about that they got the 11 wins, they got the home field, and they blew it.
And if you're Baltimore, what do you remember from the year before?
Right.
Tennessee.
Yeah, right.
Because they had a great season,
Best
Lamar
regular
Jackson's
season
MVP,
record. Yeah.
and then they get kicked around in the playoffs. So
based on what the Preds do,
how you end.
Based on what the Preds do in this series, I don't think we're gonna. If they go in and get kicked around, I don't think we're going to say, boy, they had a great second half to the regular season. We're going to say, ultimately, they didn't measure up to Carolina in any way, shape, or form. And we kind of had a feeling for that throughout the regular season. But
to start the season, they had very inconsistent goaltending. Their play on the back end defensively was not anywhere close to good.
No, they were flat.
So, now they found their goaltender, and they have injected the youth, I think, at the right time. The question is, are they ready to take that? When the Preds made the playoff, the cup run, not the playoff run, the cup run, they had a roster of, 25, 28, and that group of roster players, 10 through 25, all played significant roles for them throughout that run, where you had some really big goals. Mika Salamaki stepped up and had a big moment that won them a game. Colin Wilson had a hat trick in one of these games on their way to the cup. They're going to need
Colton Sissons.
Colton Sissons,
young
thank
Colton
you.
Sissons, yeah.
They're going to need these younger players, the Perrier, Harper, Janot. They're going to need these guys to step up. But ultimately, it goes back to what we just discussed. Is Saros still the man at the percentage that you're reading off, Paul? 94%?
941 as opposed to 895 in the playoffs after the layoff last year.
Will Forsberg and Johansson and Arvidsson and Duchesne step up and be the players and the core pieces that we expect them to be? If not, they'll be out of the series.
They'll be out of the series quickly.
The Athletic, which has a hockey backbone, started kind of as a hockey site first because they felt like hockey was underserved. Had 5 experts picking every series. Only went 3-2 Hurricanes. So I mean, that nationally, people are thinking that the Predators have a chance in this series.
Oh, 2 of the writers you say pick the
So
Preds to win
these
the
are
series.
national writers? These aren't
Yeah,
local? Okay.
National hockey people.
I just can't wait to see the energy that the Preds come out with tonight.
And
like it
You can
because
see that energy on CNBC, which is not your common stopping spot.
CNBC, but also
You
Valley
go
Sports
straight,
locally.
you go
Hockey.
straight from stock tips and Shark Tank into the Preds.
There is a
Hurricanes
local
tonight.
broadcast
The
tonight
Preds
as well.
being on
First
CNBC,
round.
though, is a great segue to something I want to hit quickly. And we can do that after the break.
Okay. Hit us up on Twitter with your thoughts. Outkick 360. You can also join us in the chat on YouTube, Outkick 360's new YouTube channel. Stay with us across the network.
We take the hit. The refrigerator light bulb burned out. Little Tommy broke a window. There's a critter in the basement that could eat a cat. There's a hot tub in the kitchen. Mary Jane in the closet. Pirate on the roof. Someone had a party. Someone released the Kraken. Indoor roller derby. Indoor compost heap. Unauthorized sublet. Cuban cigars. Food fight. Dirt fight. Skunk fight. Anything else?
VenturesWarehouse.com.
Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook, all social media outlets at Outkick 360. Instagram, full of stories and photos, videos from behind the scenes. You can interact with us there. And on Twitter at Outkick 360. We read tweets live during the show. You can interact with us no matter the time of day at Outkick 360. Find us on Twitter and Instagram. Outkick 360 and the Tennessee Power Hour. Our thoughts on the Tennessee Titans rookie minicamp in just a moment.
So I got called a boomer a bunch of times over the weekend
Sucks.
because I said that Tennessee and Arkansas, number 1 versus number 4 in the country in college baseball, only being on a cable TV channel one time over the weekend is not a good sign for college baseball being anything other than a niche sport, which it is right now. And then we're talking about the Preds on CNBC. There's a reason that professional sports leagues or any league that is financially viable wants their biggest games on television when it comes to live sporting events. It's because it works. The NFL is not running to put the Super Bowl on streaming, regardless of how popular streaming has become. And the fact that you have 1 versus 4 in a sport and exactly one game is on SEC Network and that's it is not a great sign for the sport. I don't care if it's on ESPN Plus. I don't care if you think I'm old or other people are because they don't want to go to the ESPN app to find a game. There's a reason the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, they put their playoffs and biggest games on television. It's because television is still viable for these sports.
What were they airing on across the ESPN networks? I mean,
they had.
I know they had NBA playoff or play-in type games for the finale of the regular season, but what's going on ESPN2?
I don't know. There was there was another college baseball game in the SEC. There was an Indiana-Michigan baseball game one day, I think, on one of the ESPNs. The game that Tennessee won with the walk-off 3-run homer was on SEC Network on Saturday. Look, it was a good series. I will say that there's a certain level of drama off the field and on field with Tennessee.
What's the big fight about?
That's I don't know, but Tony Vitello said something to the coach about something off the field. He admitted it. He said, I picked the wrong time. They had just lost, and I wanted to bring up something off the field I was not happy about. And he said, and that's when words exchanged, and our guys were chirping with their guys. There's an honesty with Tony Vitello in Tennessee that's refreshing, and an outlaw-type spirit with that team. And with college baseball, the trash talk. Hutton, you love Dana White and UFC for this reason. There is a UFC feel to college baseball right now because teams talk so much trash, which I don't remember seeing as much in the past. Still not a big college baseball guy. Still only saw the highlights of Tennessee-Arkansas this weekend. Didn't watch anything live. But I stand by my point that it's not a good look when one of the 3 games in the biggest series of the weekend is on SEC Network and no other ESPN network. That shows you how ESPN and networks value your product during the regular season.
All right, Boomer. I just love, I'm not close to a baby boomer. I'm significantly older than you. People toss it off without knowing what it means. And now it's become acceptable. Like I've called people on it and they're like, oh, you don't get it. I actually do get it. You don't get it. Like, let's find an applicable insult and lay it on me. But don't use one that you don't know what it means.
Well, I just laugh. It was Ricky, a loyal follower of our show.
Spike Ball Championship was on against Tennessee, Arkansas.
There you go.
Spike Ball Championship. Sorry,
well, but again, it's just funny when I'm called a boomer because the game's not on TV and that's not a good sign for your league. And I'm thinking, well, the NFL's a bunch of boomers. The NBA's a bunch of boomers. The NHL's a bunch of boomers. Major League Baseball's a bunch of boomers because they're not streaming their biggest games and their biggest products. They're on television. There's a reason that games are on television and not everything is on streaming.
Can't you get those streamed? Like, you have to subscribe to something. They're not going to stream them for free.
Well, they're on both.
Yeah, both.
Both you can watch the March Madness on both with the March Madness app.
So
but guess where they are first?
Right.
Television.
So you want them streamed but not on TV? That makes no sense. Like if it's streamed,
it's someone defending the honor of college baseball, acting like it's a bigger deal than it is, like Ricky and so many other people. And I'm giving you an example. Here's why it's not as big of a deal as maybe it should be. If you love college baseball, you should agree with me. There were a lot of Tennessee fans chiming in on Twitter saying, you're right. This is a series that every game should have been on one of the ESPN stations. They can flex schedule if they really want. But people say, well, the TV schedule's done it.
Of course they
can.
You
could make it happen.
You
could take off Spike Ball if you wanted to.
You got a big contract with Spike Ball. Spike Ball's up and coming.
But they don't rate well. That's the bottom line. These games just don't rate that well.
Titans minicamp rated well based on reaction to people commenting on Twitter over the weekend, Paul. I was following along from Atlanta. If you're looking for the best news and notes, go to paulkoharski.com. He's got everything listed on things he was allowed to observe and actually report on. And the biggest notes that we'll bring up here are comments made after a practice, not about what was going on during the boring practice. But a couple of questions I have, Paul, just off of reading your coverage. First, Elijah Molden was there, but then was
He
slowed.
was there. He was not around during warm-ups and individual and stuff. Then all of a sudden he was there with a coach.
he's not full speed.
Standing deep during 7-on-7, which was the final drill. Then he went up to participate in 3, maybe 4 snaps. Looked very ginger running. He's got some kind of a leg injury.
He's working through something. But
Initially, I thought he had some kind of brace or tape on his lower left leg. You know, my eyes sometimes are not good. I moved to get as close as I could to look, and actually it's a tattoo.
I really wish you would have said that it was a brace, though, and it got people all worked up, and it was a tattoo.
I was ready to write down like something on his left leg, and then I'm like, that looks funny.
While we're talking position groups, Caleb Farley just stood around.
I didn't even notice him out there. I think he was inside the whole time. Vrabel doesn't believe in guys standing around and taking mental reps, so he said he was doing rehab.
And he was available to the media afterwards, but
Yes.
he's in the building. But
He was
not doing
available
anything
to the
other
media
than
to
being
tell
in the
us
building.
about how he was doing rehab.
Rashad Weaver not available to the media, I'm guessing?
No. We talked to 3 guys.
That's the biggest note, is that they commented publicly, other than a statement,
Vrabel, yeah.
on Rashad Weaver with
Vrabel said, he doesn't feel like they need to change anything scouting-wise, that things are going to happen, that they take the allegations very seriously, but that, that they address such things as they come up, as they have to, and they'll let things play out.
Kalijah Lipscomb sucked.
It's terrible.
sorry, Vandy.
He's a tryout player
Sorry,
for the
Vandy
Titans
fans.
this weekend.
One of the videos that I put out was a drill where the receiver kind of came off around tackling dummy, then had to make a catch with like a arm pad flashing in front of him. Then you turned and batted away a heavy ball thrown at you, and then got into ladders to do foot drills. And he was just having trouble making the catch with the arm pad flashing in front of him. And then he fell out. I said fell out because nobody was going to waste a question asking about an injury for a tryout guy, but he wasn't around later. I don't think he's getting signed.
Yeah, he's clearly not. I'm surprised that he didn't catch on somewhere and has not been more consistent based on what we saw in
college. He had a good college career.
Ryan Kerrigan signs with the Eagles. He apparently the 3 teams that were most interested in Ryan Kerrigan, pass rusher from Washington, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, not the Tennessee Titans, which leads to this discussion. Are they okay with Dupree and Landry and Weaver and Roberson? Or do we think that they'll be in the mix down the road for a Houston or an Ingram? Right?
I don't know. Houston, to me, is more expensive than Kerrigan based on his production last year. He played a lot more snaps than Kerrigan.
Yeah.
Ingram, I don't know. I don't think they're in the mix for those guys. I don't know that they were ever in the mix for Kerrigan. I was in the mix for Kerrigan. I really like the idea of Kerrigan.
I mean, I cannot
think
help
they'll
but look
stay
at the
put.
depth chart and think they're an
One
injury
injury
away
away
from being right where
Right
they
where they
were
were.
last year at the position. And that's no knock on Dupree, who's coming off the ACL. He's an exceptional player, and you overpay for those types of players in free agency. Harold Landry, if he plays well and gets hurt, because he's been healthy, if he gets hurt and drops off, they have Weaver step up in his spot, and then they have Roberson back to playing the role he was last year, which was not very good. The depth
They're one
is a
injury
concern.
away from being reliant on Weaver, who's got a court hearing on October 5th, and who we have no. I mean, he's a
Another-
4th-round draft pick.
Right.
You're
And
counting on
I
a
don't
4th-round
want-
draft pick.
I'm not going to pretend like they have a bunch of monopoly money sitting around and there's no salary cap structure. There is. I mean, they have monetary decisions to make based on the cap that they're presented with for 2021. But for a defense that was desperate on 3rd down to find any semblance of a pass rush, for a secondary last year that has been completely overhauled to this year's version, they're going to need a lot of, we rip hockey for saying puck luck. They need injury luck on their side to begin the season. They don't have a bye week until week 13, and then right out of the gate they're facing some mobile quarterbacks that are going to extend plays. They have to be on the hoof, and they can't right now afford to have an injury to any one of these 4 players.
They've added a
or they're
premier
screwed.
guy in Dupree, but like you said, he's coming off an ACL. They added a 4th-round pick who you're optimistic about, but he's got this legal
Sure.
thing hanging over his head. And after that, nothing.
Nothing.
So, you need some numbers there to give you
And
some
there are teams that have
confidence.
worse depth. There are teams that have much better depth. But we're basing it off of last year and where they are really needing to improve.
They went and added a lot of corner depth. They didn't go and add a lot of outside linebackers.
And they're younger. They should be better at corner. But it goes hand in hand. It's the chicken or the egg. Do you go with pass rush or defensive? But do you start in the back end or the front end on overhauling your defense? The Titans need help in both areas, and they've done that well in the secondary on paper. When I look on paper here, I like Dupree and Landry. I like the idea of what Rashad Weaver can be, but one injury away or a hamstring away, and I'm not even trying to act like a season-ending injury. I'm just simply discussing an injury that could keep you out for 4 or 5 weeks,
Or make you not 100% when you're back.
They don't believe
a
in
third or
going.
a quarter of your season. Then they're really hampered, and you're out looking and combing the free agent wire, which is not going to be that good.
And look, we can say this. We're saying this, and we're in agreement on this. And you can go further than this and say, well, never mind beyond Weaver. They don't have a number 2 receiver or a number 3 receiver.
Right,
If you're
right.
optimistic about Josh Reynolds, they don't have a number 1 tight end.
How different does number 81 look
Yeah,
this year?
it looks weird. It's on
Jonnu Smith, no longer on this team. And
It's on
McMath.
Racy McMath.
McMath is wearing 81. 81's going to be playing a lot more special teams in
Yes.
2021.
Yeah, if he's on the roster.
Any other news or notes that just
Well, Naquan Jones is the only defensive lineman, right? So he got a ton of one-on-one time with Terrell Williams and the new assistant defensive line coach, Kenichi Udeze. Shane Bowen was even over there some. So, you'd like for a defensive line to be working with a defensive line, but if you're alone, he got 3 days of great work with a position coach that gives him a leg up on earning a roster spot.
And I brought up last night,
role.
I was asked on Channel 5 by John Burton and Steve Lehman. They said, hey, who's a undrafted player to keep an eye on? I mentioned Naquan Jones because of the position that he's playing. We just discussed pass rush depth. Naquan Jones is a run stopper. He's going to play the shade technique on the line of scrimmage. He's not as thick as Tierre Tart, but he's 6'3", 320 pounds-ish, maybe a little more than
They're
that.
thin at that spot, nose.
He's a gap filler. And exactly. After you look at the nose spot and you see who's there, I'm not saying he makes the roster in May. He's not done that.
No.
But is he a player that could stick around for a while? Is he a guy that's up and down the roster? To me, he fits the mold of that.
Yeah, I think you'd have a leg up on a practice squad, particularly if they're at 16. And there's no word on 16.
Undrafted out of Michigan State, Naquan Jones. From Daquan to Naquan Jones.
When we come back, I'm close to adding someone to the enemies list for the first time. Name number 1 on the enemies list.
His name is David?
No.
Oh, it's not David Reed. Okay. We'll find out.
Or David.
Or David.
From
We'll
the
find
YouTube
out
chat. Famous from the
who
YouTube
could
chat.
potentially make the enemies list for one Chad
It's
Withrow.
exciting. I don't even know who it
The
is.
clipboard is here. It's 2 Chads left.
Getting very angry with Twitter right now. Very angry.
Chad, how dare you?
This
See, he was angry that day.
This is where we will take a tweet and make it our first call in show history.
You know what, though? Make everyone happy and let them know about Renter's Warehouse.
Well, Renter's Warehouse can make you happy because it can help your financial situation, and they can do so in a number of ways. Go to rwnashville.com or call 615-398-9550, and they can let you know about the Upfront program going on right now with Renter's Warehouse. Get the most out of your real estate investment by receiving a full year of rent paid up front. Sounds too good to be true, but it's not. That's up to a year of rent payments in your pocket right now. By giving you your money up front, Renter's Warehouse helps minimize risk and provides financial flexibility so you can build long-term wealth. Renter's Warehouse, Nashville's leader in property management, is the only company providing upfront rent. The upfront rent program is available for a limited time. Call Renter's Warehouse Nashville. You can see the number at 615-398-9550 or visit rwnashville.com. That's rwnashville.com to see if you qualify. Do it the Renter's Warehouse way and get tomorrow's rent today.
Chad potentially adds to the enemy's list. This is the face of an angry man. Next on Outkick 360.
When you have people renting your house, you may get a call about a certain plumbing issue. Someone has dropped the kids off at the pool, sunk a sausage, cooked a meatloaf in the porcelain saucepan, downloaded a brown load. And now they need someone to plunge in and clear the air. So, would you rather that call go to you or to Renter's Warehouse? Thought so. Remember, when the call's about number 2, you'll be glad you work with number 1.
VenturesWarehouse.com.
The 360 Masters is back. Hey, it's Hutton. Hope you'll join us on June 10th for a one-of-a-kind event with Outkick 360, other great writers and producers from Outkick, including David Reed, who will throw his back out again for the second annual event. Thursday, June 10th, you can sign up on Eventbrite or just follow us on Twitter at Outkick 360. 100% of the proceeds will go to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Tennessee. Hope you'll join us for a great event. Get your team today and join us at Topgolf Nashville for the 360 Masters. Wrapping up things from Studio G in Nashville, Tennessee, Blackbird Studios, our location. Thanks for joining us for our Monday edition of Outkick 360 across the Outkick Network. And thank you for subscribing to the new YouTube channel. Search us out at Outkick 360 on YouTube. You can find the podcast wherever you download your podcast. And right now, 30% off of the VIP membership at Outkick by subscribing to YouTube. Go to youtube.com. You can get exclusive access like I just had to Paul's head there in the frame.
I laugh at both of you guys because Paul will constantly put his hand in Hutton's shot, and then I'll see Hutton's hand occasionally, but Hutton will catch it when he starts to grab his coffee and his hand's in my shot and he'll pull it back.
Oh, well.
Paul's completely oblivious.
Completely unaware.
Completely oblivious every time.
Sometimes we'll go to the single shot with Chad and you'll just see my hand reach over and I quickly move it back. Yes. Speaking
Interesting
of
freeze
Chad's
frame
camera,
where-
Chad, speaking of your camera, you look into this camera to my right and you let everyone know what's in your hand and why.
This is the enemies list of the Outkick 360 right here. Jake Popoff, our I did pronounce that correctly, right? Yeah. Jake Popoff, our production assistant this summer, asked me during the break, so what is the enemies list and who goes on the enemies list? The enemies list is a list of our enemies.
You need a piece
and
of
you
paper.
go on it if you insult us in some way that we find reprehensible.
You need a piece of paper on
And then it'll go on this list right here. Well, I don't need a piece of paper on it right now because I considered putting someone on the enemies list right now, but they're not worthy of the enemies list.
Wow.
So they're not going on there. But let me read you a tweet because Ricky in West End said he would have called in, but he can't. So he was tweeting and he's saying that I completely whiffed on my college baseball argument of the games not being on TV, not being a good thing for the sport. And he said, I missed his point entirely. So I'm going to let you guys be the judge.
Good.
Here are the tweets yesterday from Ricky. The game was on the ESPN platform. This isn't 2005 watching a pirated local feed through white noise and buffering. The boomer mentality is pretending like not using your Comcast remote lessens the experience. I'm not a Comcast customer, first and foremost. Are you saying Netflix series aren't as successful because they aren't on TV? This is the equivalent of the boomer saying Netflix or Amazon originals aren't TV shows or movies. That is not the equivalent of that at all. Of course, these are TV series and movies that are on these platforms. But let me give you an entertainment example, Ricky, since you want to make it into an entertainment one. Mayor of Easttown is currently running on HBO and HBO Max. Do you know why Mayor of Easttown with Kate Winslet airs on HBO every Sunday night? Then they put it on HBO Max? Because it's better to have both. Two, better than one. Let me break it down to you simply. When you can go on TV and streaming, it's beneficial to your product. It's why the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NHL playoffs, all sports that are profitable, put their products and their biggest games on TV and streaming options. Do you see how that works? Do you see how it's very simple what I'm saying to you? It is better to be on both. It's why the biggest events are on television also. Regardless of what you want to say, because you're too cheap to spend money on cable, cable TV and television matters. I don't care what cord cutters say. 20 years from now, maybe there is no cable, and then it won't matter. But right now, college baseball is still a niche sport because number one can play number four in a 3-game series with 3 games decided by 1 run, and exactly, more math for you, one of those games is on television. That is not good for your sport. Did I make myself clear in my argument? Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
I completely agree with you.
I understood.
Did I misconstrue his argument in what he was saying?
Well, his argument was you can be I think he was trying to make the point. You can be a hit, pardon the pun, you can be a hit streaming only. But the difference is there is a validation if you're on an ESPN platform to being on ESPN or ESPN2. And if there was another college baseball game on, which you say they were showing other games, if they're showing other games over number 1 versus number 4.
That makes no sense.
And they're showing Spike Ball. Spike Ball is ESPN Plus worthy.
But comparing when Ricky starts to try to get in these mental gymnastics of comparing Ozark to a live sporting event, for instance, on Netflix, and versus what makes a hit and what doesn't, you're losing the argument. Because I would ask Ricky, name one major sport that's a major moneymaker in America that is streaming only.
Yeah, there isn't.
That's only streamed live. That's it. No television deal. Not their biggest games aren't on TV. They're only streamed.
You go to TV first for live sports.
Thank you. But he doesn't make the enemies list. I actually do kind of like Ricky also.
I do too.
We've hung out with him at events.
Ricky's great.
He's a good guy to converse with on these things. So he will not go on the enemies list. But it will be a special occasion when we all have to vote together on who's going to be the first on the enemies list.
Top 4 of the new baseball poll: Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Texas, Tennessee. So Tennessee didn't move from 4.
I'm surprised Vandy didn't move after losing 2 out of 3 to Ole Miss over weekend.
I am stunned that you guys know this much about college baseball standings.
I'm just seeing a tweet.
You know how I know that, Hutton?
I couldn't tell you how many Tennessee won against Arkansas.
Hutton, do you know how I know that? because I watched Channel 5 and Steve Landon tell me that last night. And now what Hutton is telling me is I don't need to be watching that and getting all the info. I just need to watch his segment, which now I'll start doing. It's good to know that I don't have to watch the whole thing. I'll just watch Hutton on there.
You don't have to.
I saw the highlights of Tennessee, Arkansas, and I saw the highlights of Vandy, Ole Miss because I watched the.
Oh, I saw the highlight. I mean,
Sports
I know the Vols won a game. I couldn't tell you if they
The
won the
only highlight I
series or
saw
where they were
was the
ranked.
coaches arguing behind the plate after the game was over.
Yes. Yeah, I know more about Vitello's comments that Chad sent me than I do the actual result of college baseball. And I couldn't tell you the other top four other than Tennessee
I want
and
that
Vandy
to happen
for sure.
during the game so I could see somebody tossed.
Guys, we need a show bet tonight. Are we taking the Preds money line? I'm
No.
pulling up. That's why I'm doing on my
Plus-
phone right now.
I'm not.
Plus what? What are we plus on that? Do we know
It's
that?
only plus 148.
No.
That's not enough.
I do not believe in the Preds tonight.
Taking Carolina.
Carolina.
Boy.
Yeah, so it's Carolina money line minus 176 or minus a goal and a half. We can take the Preds plus a goal and a half.
I think what I'm telling you, Hutton, is I'm done betting with my heart because that's got me in the position
That's
I'm
fine.
in right
That's
now.
fair.
Yeah, I'm not
And my
betting
mind
Preds
says
tonight.
Carolina.
I'm not betting Preds tonight. What do you got on Braves, Yanks, O's?
Well, Freed's on the
Games that
mound
we
for the
won't
Braves.
be watching because we'll be watching the Preds.
Freed's on the mound for the Braves, and I bet on him last week, and he really let me down. They play tonight at home against the Mets.
I'm
They've
telling
got
you, the
Walker on the mound
Braves,
for New York.
it's exactly what I said would happen. They get closer and closer to 500, even getting there at times, and they go on a losing streak. They won 2 in a row. They got 1 game away from 500. They lose yesterday.
Garrett Cole over 10.5 strikeouts at the Rangers. Rangers strike out a lot.
Chad, there's Paul again with the strikeout.
Plus
he loves that
118.
with FanDuel. You'll love FanDuel as well. FanDuel.com/OK360. Great odds, but better props for you. New users right now. Up to $1,000 is what you can wager on your first bet. You can get up to $1,000 back in site credit if you lose your first bet with FanDuel Sportsbook. I love Chad saying here, when you see something like this, you have to ask yourself, why have I not already done this? Try FanDuel Sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/OK360.
What are you waiting on? I mean, it's free money we're offering up here at FanDuel. I mean, I'm actually part of FanDuel. I'm not. But I'm telling you, you've got to take advantage of this
I want
offer.
to learn more.
Don't know why you haven't done it.
I want to be
You
able
wanna
to
break off
talk
the
directly
strikeouts?
to. No, I want to be able to talk directly to FanDuel because I wanted to do Yankees money line, Cole over 10.5, and the first inning to be scoreless, but it won't let the first inning to be scoreless parlay. And I just want to understand why it won't let certain things be part of the same game parlay.
I get really intrigued when I try to bet on something live and it locks up when I do it. And I'm always thinking, what do they know? What's going on in this game? What weird activity is happening on this game, or what big pivotal moment happened right now? Is there a home run in the air in this game I'm trying to bet live on where they freeze it in that moment as the ball's hit? Every time I get very suspicious as to what's going on when a game locks up like that.
I'd like to see the people at the controls with that.
Yeah, someone's just watching an Orioles-Twins game. And they're like,
Hard contact off the line.
deep fly ball, boom, shuts it down. Can't bet on it right now.
behind the scenes, like, show.
of live betting.
Yeah. Of
That'd be
what
very
it's like to be in the staff involved with all of that, with every game on, and how you're monitoring that.
You're listening to a
in
lot
real
of Hamilton soundtrack. The
In
room
real
where it
time.
happens.
Well, I mean, imagine if you're the person that's in charge of watching one or two games and you miss. I'm
miss
sure
it.
I know it's
One
all
game.
digital and I'm sure it's all some sort of algorithm. But if it was an actual person that had to update the odds or do something to update the score and they missed it for an inning or two,
or imagine
and
hiring-
the lag time of how the odds would be. You know, a team's down 4 and they hit a grand slam and that doesn't update. So you're betting big money on plus 850 and you're giving up millions to your company because you didn't update it in time.
Or imagine if
It's never
FanDuel
million,
happened to
though.
be like Outkick and hire Sleepy Danny.
That's a possibility.
There's certain
By the
jobs.
way,
certain jobs he's not getting.
A documentary about Sleepy Dan falling asleep at the wheel and costing his company millions is something I'd watch. And a message for Ricky: if I watched it, it would be on both TV and streaming, because that's how entertaining it would be, because it would make money, and that's what you do when you make money. You put things on television and streaming, which that documentary would be on.
Chad's still hammering.
Hey, more power to him on that. And I will tell you, Ricky can do a lot worse and still not make the enemies list of this show as a season ticket holder.
Ricky's not on the enemies list.
It's beautiful.
I can't wait to find out who number 1 will be. That'll be a grand occasion.
I don't know. It'll be more of the first. This will be the debut of the enemies list than a number 1. Because I think we could probably re-rank after some time.
No, the first enemy, not the number 1 enemy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we'll pass along a special deal as we wrap up going on for 360 and season ticket holders. The new YouTube channel available, Outkick 360. Search it out there in the top bar. By doing so, you can then go to outkick.com/VIP360. Outkick.com/VIP360, 30% off the VIP membership for Outkick VIP just by subscribing. There you go. Just by subscribing to YouTube. Fun show today. We are back at it tomorrow. Big thanks to the entire staff, David Reed for making the show happen, Lance Lee, Jacob Swanson, and others. Hit us up on Twitter at Outkick360. Follow us there as well. And we hope you'll like, subscribe, share on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Shout out Becca Risley for making the show happen as well. And she's back tomorrow, I think, right? Which means David Reed's back in studio with us.
Yeah, Davey.
We miss you,
David
Reed.
Reed is back with us tomorrow. Cannot wait for that as he's been pulling some double duty down the hall, as we like to say, here at Blackbird Studio and Blackbird Academy.
And shout out to Jake, our production assistant,
Jake was
making
great.
his debut, doing a great
Strong
job.
debut.
Jake was great. Join us for the Tuesday edition. We start at noon Eastern right here across the Outkick Network.
In the meantime, do not block the box, and please lock your locks.